DEQ has a lien on the property, and we are not going to allow a transfer of property ownership without a prospective purchaser agreement. And what a prospective purchaser agreement is, to try to summarize this, is um, it it essentially allows brownfields such as McCormick and Baxter for encourages development of such properties that have historical contamination in a way that, as long as the remedy, aka the cleanup, is protective, and if there is a what's called a substantial public benefit, which that exact term is in state statute, as long as you can hit these two agreements or those two modes alongside other conditions, that property transfer can happen with some liability protections for the new owner. And that's exactly what's happening here in terms of a proposal and an evaluation. It has not been approved. We have an application right now, and we've been in discussions with the applicant, which is Portland Botanical Gardens, which is a fairly new nonprofit, for a little over a year now. So they've submitted us this proposal. We've been in touch with them this entire time, trying to negotiate terms of this and really trying to figure things out while also engaging with the community as well as tribal governments throughout this entire period. Um, Had some really good meetings with community groups, community individuals, as well as tribal nations over the past year. And anyways, what I'm trying to say is throughout all of this, we're reaching a point where I can preview that we might have a draft PPA ready to go on public comment later this fall, possibly in November. So if things continue as they have been, we are anticipating a public comment period to start in November. Um, Keyword is anticipating. And if that does happen, if we do have this public comment period, what we're anticipating is a 45-day public comment period that is going to include informational meetings with tribes and informational meetings with the community. Those are still to be scheduled, as long as things keep progressing. Um, so exciting stuff with that. I know there's definitely some questions there, but what we're planning on doing as immediate next steps is the DEQ is going to prepare some updates about what's been happening in recent months in writing and sharing that to community groups and individuals that have engaged with us throughout this process. If there's anybody in the room or online that does want to be apprised with any updates that may have not been involved until now, would love to have you as part of our email list. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat here, and I hope folks in the room can share that around. So pretty soon here, and within the next few weeks, there's going to be a written update from DEQ about what's been happening since May, which is the last time we had these round of community and tribal meetings, and now. And I hope that we will be able to share more about a public comment period and public engagement process. Um, yeah, that's a lot right there. That's a lot to preview, but I do want to emphasize the word anticipating for a public comment period because we're just not 100% there yet. But I do want to put this on people's radar because if this does happen, it's coming uh, perhaps later this fall. And I want to make sure that we have enough opportunity for folks to ask us questions and for us to provide as much information and updates as we can before this public comment period would start. So with that said, I would just follow by saying that I'm not going to speak for Portland Botanical Gardens, but I do know that they have been doing a lot of community and tribal outreach themselves. So if you have not had a chance to talk to them, if you are interested in doing so, I would bet that they would love to talk to you. So they have information online where you can reach out to them. I believe they are going to present to this CAG in the monthly meeting in November. So there's opportunities to engage with them as well to ask them about what their plans are for the site. So anyways, that concludes my updates. And I was just talking a lot, so I would like to open the floor for any questions for DEQ.
Folks can either, if you're in person, you can raise your hand to ask a question. If you're online, we ask that you would put your question in the chat and we can read it out. Yeah, if you could just make sure to project, that'd be great.
My name is Laura Feldman, I'm with the Ray, and I'm just wondering, with something like this, which is a new development, in the Superfund designation, well, actually, any development now on the river, do they have to, consider seismic, criteria when they're building and stuff like this? Maybe that's true for all of Portland, I really don't know, but especially there where the Cascadia quake is expected, where there's a fault. I just wonder if they have to, build accordingly.
Okay, so just to repeat the question, it was about if seismic stability needs to be taken into account when building at this site or other developments along the river.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know seismic stability is on top of everyone's minds in this region. So when it comes to DEQ, we're not going to have specific requirements for that. However, I do believe there are building codes and perhaps local codes that answer that question. For DEQ, when it comes to seismic stability regulations, we're more so focused on large-scale fuel tanks, which we have a fuel tank seismic stability program for such facilities like large tanks at the CEI hub. That would not pertain to Portland Botanical Gardens development. However, whatever local or building code requirements that may be required from a local or a county level, that's something I can't speak to, but that is probably something that they would need to address and put as part of their plans, depending on what types of structures they may want to develop.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions in the room? I see Micah.
Yeah, so in the current draft of the PPA, is DEQ considering completely closing out the lien that is on the current owner, McCormick, or?
Did you hear that question, Michael?
I heard half of it. I think I
Okay.
heard.
Is the lien on the property going to be closed out? Is that the plan?
I think I would need to follow up on that. When it comes to this, so with the PPA, we would essentially PBG would have to satisfy various conditions for us to allow the property transaction to go through. Now, when it comes to does that excuse the lien from the McCormick and Baxter company or Charlie McCormick, who's the owner of that? I want to say I believe so. I am not a lawyer or like have expertise in property transactions, but let's say if the property does transact, then Portland Botanical Gardens would be the owner of the property. When it comes to let's say financial compensation for the cleanup, which is why there is that lien placed on the property because McCormick and Baxter they were not able to pay for that cleanup when it happened. Um, we would have essentially part of the transaction would be reimbursing for fair market value or fair market property value of the property, and that would be split between DEQ and EPA. So I hope that answers the question. There would be some compensation to the public in that sense. When it comes to like the lien and how does that get resolved, I don't know the finer details of that, but that is a great question. that I can follow up on.
Great, thank you, Michael, and it looks like there's some conversation going on that in the room that could also be helpful, so we appreciate that as well. Any other questions in the room? No, how about online? No. Great, well, thank you so much for your update, Michael. We really appreciate it and appreciate you joining us tonight.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'll be hanging on for just a little bit longer, but yeah, really appreciate the time and wish I was seeing you in person, but I'll be there next time.